Welcome to The Power of the P, the podcast designed to help you become empowered in your truth, free of fear. I'm E.L. Brooks, your host, here to bring you expert advice and effective tools based on neuroscience to help you deal with all the stressors in life, relationships, and work. I'm here to keep you off that struggle bus through the power of the P. Are you ready? Then let's go. Welcome to The Power of the P, episode number 7. Thank you for tuning in. If you're not familiar with the show's format, it's like a Dear John life advice show, except for I'm EL, so it's Dear EL, where followers and subscribers send in questions, the things that they're dealing and struggling with, and I'll pick one question. I always say one or two, but it's always one. And I'll give insight and provide some effective tools that are backed in neuroscience, and I'll offer one key takeaway at the end to log into your memory to help you become more resilient and emotionally stable. So today we have an email from Julie W. So Julie asked me, what is the one thing that I would credit to developing a healthy mindset? Well, that question is so profound, it really got the team and I to think, because of course, my natural tendency was to take the opportunity and do some self-promotion around our discovery workshop, the 4-step blueprint to emotional stability and resilience, the approach to creating a solution, a good one, but not the answer that I think Julie is looking for. So we were a bit stumped. To be honest, we initially pulled another email by Darnell, who was asking what determines a good or great life. And the team was like, yeah, let's go with that one. So that will be the following week, because that is a great question too by Darnell. But I like a challenge. So I went back to Julie's email and she said one thing. So I said, wait, what is it? Then that made me do what I get my clients to do, which is to drill down several layers to the core to access the answer. And then bam, I got it. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was so obvious once I drilled down. But when you do this stuff for a long period of time, you kind of forget to go back to the roots and go back to the basics. So everyone needs to thank Julie, including myself, for this week's episode. I believe this episode has the potential to be a real change agent for those who are ready to receive life-changing information. This is a long one because there's lots to cover and explain around the one thing that I believe develops a healthy mindset. The topics we're going to cover are deep, so strap in because we're going on a ride, baby. Some may call it woo-woo, but we're going to go all the way back to what some refer to as the foundation to all teachings. So what I ask for you is to be open-minded, be open to the possibilities. So remember, a closed mind is like a closed mouth. It doesn't get fed and has a tendency to eventually starve to death. So take in the information, let it sit with you for a while, and then revisit it because I believe that it has the power to change your current way of thinking. So let's get into Julie W.'s email. Julie's email says, I hope that this message finds you well. I've been a subscriber to your YouTube channel for quite some time now, and I've found that your content is incredibly insightful and motivating. Your videos on personal development and mental wellness have been particularly impactful for me, and I wanted to reach out to express my gratitude for the valuable content that you provide. Recently, I've been reflecting on the concept of cultivating a healthy mindset, especially in today's fast-paced and often stressful world. I've been exploring various techniques and practices to improve my mental well-being, but I find myself wondering, what is the one thing that you believe creates a healthy mindset? I understand that everyone's journey towards mental wellness is unique, but I'm curious to hear your perspective on this matter, whether it's a specific mindset shift, daily habit, or principle to live by. I'm eager to learn what you consider to be the most essential factor in fostering a positive and resilient mindset. Your insights have been incredibly valuable to me in the past, and I believe your perspective on this topic could provide further clarity and guidance on my journey towards a healthier mindset. Thank you once again for the impactful work that you do through your channel. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this matter and continuing to benefit from your wisdom and expertise. Warm regards, Julie W. First of all, that's such a thoughtful and warm message, Julie. So I'm really sincerely touched. Thank you. All right. So naturally, as humans, we like to complicate things, right? And again, we should all thank Julie for asking such a simple yet profound question. And here is the simple answer, if you're ready. The simple answer is, it's developing our second voice. Our second voice is the key to a healthy mindset and intentional living. Now, we all have the first voice, right? That's our naysaying voice. And depending on how much energy we give it or feed it, determines how destructive our mindset can be. And the first voice is the one that we listen to. It's by design. You see, we're not created to be happy. Our superpower as humans, emphasis on the human part, is adaptability. Our main goal is to survive. So the first voice is there to protect us. It's a form of self preservation. But over time, for most of us that don't remain connected to source, our first voice can become that self critic that leads to self loathing. And if you never develop a second voice, you'll be captive by the powers of the first voice, which is never there to uplift. No, not at all. The first voice prevents you from dying. But as a result, it also prevents you from fully living. Now, in my research, I found that those who develop the second voice tend to be more successful and free. That doesn't mean successful in a financial sense. I mean successful. Our second voice is the one that we control. Our second voice actually puts our first voice in check because it challenges the first voice. We listen to the first voice, but the power of our second voice allows us to talk to the first voice. Our second voice creates balance and it allows us to stop listening to things and start talking about things. You'll soon learn in this episode that our second voice is magical. That is, it is connected to all that we are that exceeds space and time. So they say, I don't know who they is, but they say that you have to be the master of fate. You have to be the captain of your soul, and you have to realize that you have to participate in your own destiny, right? Life happens for you, not to you. And you're only a victim if you perceive yourself to be a victim. Life happens through you. It's through your mindset, right? You're not experiencing life. You're experiencing the life that you're focused on. So let's level set for a second, right? And really dive into this concept of the second voice. But in order to do that, we need to learn how we develop the first voice. You have to ship that you actually have with your mind is the most important relationship, period. You will talk to yourself more than anyone on the planet. And with that being said, the important question that you need to ask yourself is this: what defines you as a person? Don't overthink it. Just pause the video right now and answer that question. What defines you as a person? Now, I'll give you some real time to really think about that question. But I can tell you this: whatever you write down is simply an illusion. It's an observation within a dual reality. And I know that may sound way out there right now, but hopefully halfway through this episode, that will make more sense to you. So most of us experience the same journey on a continuum, right? Somewhere along our journey, usually as adolescents, we learn to people please on some level because we want people to like us, right? So we do things. For me, it was play sports, play music. So we tend to do things not really for ourselves, but for other people's favorable opinions. So now we're unknowingly living for others, not really for ourselves, right? And this becomes a slippery slope for most because we're looking for outside approval for our internal validation. It's worse today because some people live for the opinions of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, of millions in some cases, right? You see, my generation didn't have social media. We were only worried about our immediate audience, which was our peers in school for the most part. Rumors could get out, but it was usually contained within a small group. You see, going viral in my day was having the entire millions of strangers who can bully and DM you and plant poisonous seeds in your young, underdeveloped mindset. And this, among other things, brings life to that first voice. Even if you weren't the victim of a viral video gone wrong, chances are when you were an adolescent, you were blindly influenced. For me, I've always considered myself to be a leader, but even I dressed a certain way, or my hairstyle was a certain way according to the trends, right? And thank God that those days are over. But the point being is our behavior is all monitored and influenced by the opinions of others. Now it's even worse because we have social media setting false standards that tend to pull us away from who we truly are, our true identity. This is one of the main reasons why we start to look for someone or something to make us feel complete. Again, because we're unknowingly losing ourselves trying to please and appease. The more we do this, the bigger that gap between our core self and our shadow and our ego gets, right? And this tends to make us feel empty and broken inside. Now, it's important to hear this because when we lose ourselves, we track. But since we're not aware of the purpose of the first voice, we tend to sink into these lower energetic emotions that our first voice actually creates. And then we can spiral into a mindset where we further feel stuck and or lost. There are three main causes that you should be aware of. And again, for me, if I'm aware of all the impediments in my life, I can form strategies to remove them one by one, right? Strategies is simply making the unconscious conscious so that you can take agency over your life. So losing one's identity can result from various factors, right? But we recognize three common causes. So let's learn what those three common causes are that lead to us losing ourselves in problems. Problem number one is ACE, which stands for adverse childhood experiences. It's our trauma, it's our stress, it's adverse life events that create trauma imprints. It's experiencing trauma or adverse life events such as abuse, neglect, loss of a loved one, or significant life change, which can disrupt a person's sense of self. These experiences can shatter one's confidence, their sense of security, and self image, leading to a loss of identity as they struggle to make sense of the experiences and adapt to new circumstances. Our ACE generally makes us feel broken, which is why we all tend to have some variation of not good enough, not lovable, and not worthy narrative that holds us back. So, problem number two, or the common cause number two, is social comparison or external influences, which we talked about earlier, right? It's constantly comparing oneself to others or seeking validation from external sources such as social media, societal expectations, or peer pressure. All of those things can erode a person's sense of identity, right? When individuals prioritize others' opinions or conform to societal norms at the expense of their authentic self, they may lose touch with their true values, their true interests, and aspirations, leading to a loss of identity. Now, for me, when I was young, I used to love writing and playing music. I went to the University of Miami School of Jazz, Hurricane for life, baby. But I double majored because my dad said that I needed a plan B. Now, because my parents were footing the bill, I felt obligated to comply to his wishes, right? But in doing so, when I look back after all these years, I lost my passion for writing and playing music because I lost my why. My why became my father's why, which didn't resonate with me, right? I didn't want a plan B. I didn't need a plan B. Most plan Bs, in my opinion, are forms of giving up. And I didn't understand at the time why I needed to alter my plans when I was still so young and had my entire life ahead of me to figure it out. It felt like giving up. And in a sense, I did. Number three is probably the most common cause and the biggest problem. It's a lack of self awareness and authenticity. So, a lack of self awareness or authenticity can contribute to a loss of identity. When individuals are disconnected from their emotions, their values, and their beliefs, they may struggle to understand who they are and what truly matters to them, right? So the lack of clarity and authenticity can lead to feelings of emptiness, confusion, and disconnection from oneself, resulting in a loss of identity over time, which typically leads to an unhealthy mindset. So here are the numbers just in America as a result of people losing themselves and not knowing who they are and thus having an unhealthy mindset. They say 1/3 of Americans feel stuck and dissatisfied with their lives. That's over 100 plus million people. That's because when you're lost, you don't know what you want, right? You're too focused on what's not right, what's wrong, what you don't want. That's because you're not being authentic. You've lost the ability to be authentic. So the key is to learn to be authentic again. You got to know what you want and why. Don't be PC about it, right? That's not being authentic. Don't say, I want to lose weight. Make it real. Get to the real driver. I want to lose weight because I want to hook up with more desirable people. That's being authentic. Truth to power. Give yourself permission to be selfish and think about what you really want in a way that creates action, right? So, getting what you want, you'll learn, is simple. I didn't say easy, I said simple. We just make it complicated. We live in the most advanced era where you can literally sit at your computer and get a Harvard education without going to Harvard. You have access to the same information online that is being taught in most Ivy League schools. So you have access to any information that you need to become whoever and whatever you want. But there's one conscious limitation that we fail to acknowledge. And remember, I've said this before. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. And I'll say that one more time. So please write it down. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. So intentional living
It's asking yourself what needs to change within yourself in order for you to receive all your desires. And that is your mindset. The universe gives us only what we feel, keyword is feel, we're worthy of receiving. So you have to change your neurological processing. And more importantly, you have to change your biochemistry to become what you desire. In other words, you need to experience growth to get to what Jim Rohn calls, I'll explain what the vortex is shortly, but he says that you need to stand on the books that you read, stand on the lessons that you learn. It's another way of saying that you need to connect to your second voice, who will show you the way and give you the power to proceed. The first voice gradually sucks the life out of you if you let it. It's really like death by 1,000 paper cuts because you become connection with your soul and your spirit. And again, that inner childlike spirit, the ability to dream, the ability to have a compelling outlook and future. Remember in previous episodes, I talked about scattered focus, where 40%, 42% actually of our focus is on our future. And if you're dream flat, you're not focused on the future. The number one reason is somewhere along your journey, we get comfortable with being comfortable and we drop the F bomb and we drop it all the time. We start programming ourselves to say it over and over again. And what happens is comfort becomes a drug. And once you're an addict, say goodbye to all of your big dreams and most of your goals. So I heard this a few years ago from a mentor of mine. But this F word to me is a key reason that doesn't allow people to stop, drop, and pop. Doesn't allow people to stop what they're doing, drop into their true feelings and desires, and pop the inevitable questions that bring clarity. It's 4 important questions that I'll share at the end. The F word that I'm fine, right? As Mel Robbins points out, you're in a sexless marriage, yet you're fine, right? Your boss has passed you over 3 consecutive quarters on that promotion that you know that you deserve, but your boss can't even tell you what to do to secure it, yet you're fine, right? No, you're not fine. You just shut yourself off. You're in a form of denial. In a lot of cases, we feel trapped and hopeless, right? With no tools and strategies to pull from. So you say to yourself that you're fine. And in doing so, you've just accepted a life of mediocrity, point of your dreaded work week. So we get to this place where we surrender and we feel that we can't effectively change our situation. So our first voice conveniently convinces us not to take action, right? And that becomes our new comfort zone. So the problem with thinking this way and thinking that you're fine is that you start saying it to yourself. And those things that you used to dream about having, your first voice convinces yourself that you're fine not having them now, right? So it's really a scarcity mindset. It's unworthy programming, and you'll soon learn that it's an unnecessary way of thinking and living. This type of mind programming is really considered a non growth environment. In our courses, you'll learn about the 4 growth rings, right? And in my leadership training, I actually teach people about the 3 zones that humans operate out of, which are the following. So please write these down. Procrastination is really shut down or dream flat with little to no action, right? And number 2, but the excitement is more powerful than the anxiety. So there's lots of action, right? And this taps into our fuels our passion, and that allows us to be, do, and see the unimaginable, right? We're literally witnessing the unimaginable every single day, from commercial flights to space travel, even the wonders of Dubai, which is home to some of the most unimaginable structures and concepts. Zone chaos and stress, little to no action, or the action is sporadic and unfocused and thus not really effective. So most people oscillate between comfort and anxiety, right? So we stop dreaming, we stop living, we fold and we put our lives on hold. And as Mel Robbins says, we keep pulling that emergency brake, which freezes us and holds us back from life. Example, you have a married couple and they're not getting along, right? So they say, we're going to stay together until the kids graduate high school and go off to college. And then we'll see if we can stand each other as empty nesters. But until that day, we'll just sleep in separate bedrooms and lead totally separate and independent lives until that day. And by the way, the kids are in 7th and 9th grade. So they're literally putting their life on hold for 5+ years. Look, I'm guilty of this as well. So I'm not passing any type of judgment, right? I put my life on hold for several years because back then I didn't understand the laws of the universe. So we're about to go deep. and I mean woo-woo deep. But we need to do this, in my opinion, because this is the catalyst to understanding the importance of our second voice and what our second voice is really connected to. So, origins of all teachings and all religions reside in thrice greatness. I think I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I may have pushed it up, and I apologize. I'll say that once again. I think it's thrice greatest, which shows his mastery, importantly, the spiritual. So the Hermes Trismegistus is said to have had three incarnations. The first as Thoth, who is said to be the initiator of human enlightenment, and finally as Belinus, known as the pagan Jesus or the pagan God. So stay with me. Told you we were going to go on a ride, right? This is really, really deep stuff. It is the spirit itself into one mind, and everything is contained in what is known origins of all ancient teachings, including Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, including secret societies like Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Illuminatis, even ancient yogic knowledge is said to have all pulled from these teachings. So in ancient teachings, read, as above, so below. The above came from the below, and the below from the above. Our world is dual, which is why all spiritual teachers speak in dualities, right? And so the nature of the world is yin and yang. It's hot and cold, it's light and dark, or negative and positive. So everything is manifested into two different poles. That's the illusionary world that shows us all of the opposites. It shows us contradictions every single day. Everything is possible and everything is omnipresent. So you have the ability moment to moment to be whatever and whoever, because everything is always in a state of flux. So change is the only constant. And as Rumi said, you need to go beyond the illusion, right? Remember I said, if you write, whatever you write down as who you think you are is an illusion, right? So ancient teaching says that you need to go beyond the veil of Maya and find what is permanent in this constant state of impermanence. And I'm going to say that once again because it's really, really key, right? You need to find the permanent in this constant state of impermanence. So you should look at duality as a state of evolving, but the only way to evolve is that you have to change, right? So you have to let go of things that are not serving or working in your best interests. So when I do leadership training, and I'm working with, like, say, a CEO who wants to go from 10 million to 50 million in revenue, what we're actually doing is we're evolving and growing. We're learning new skills because the skills that took that person from 0 to 10 million in revenue is not going to be the same skills to take them from 10 million to 50 million in revenue. So this next part is really, really important. So pause and write this down because it's really key to understand, right? So your quality of life is not related to the current questions that you have. It's directly proportionate to the quality of questions that you continue to ask yourself. That allows you to break the illusion. Now, I know this may sound so far out to some of you, right? But trust me, when you replay this back, hopefully, you'll see the beauty in the connection and the simplicity in the connection, right? And the beauty and the clarity of this connection is found within the second law. But here's a clue. As above, so below is so important because everything is a reflection. What is the image that you're projecting, right? And remember that the mirror won't smile until you do. You have to continuously present to the mirror what you want reflected back at you. And that requires you to understand the second law. So the second law, truth, certainty, that which there is no doubt. I'll say that again. Truth, certainty, that which there is no doubt. That's so deep, right? But what is it that is within all of us that is certain that there is no doubt, right? So let's reflect. Our bodies change in some cases. Our identity changes. We're getting older, taller, shorter, depending on the cycle of life that we're currently experiencing. But within all of those changes, what remains permanent within the impermanence of life? Pretty deep, huh? Right? So what is it? You give up? Well, I'll tell you, it's our ability to witness, watch, and observe and be aware, right? It's always been there since we were probably 2 or maybe 4, right? To our current age. It is a sort of consciousness that is beyond space-time. It is not affected by time. It is removed. It's like a step removed from space-time, right? And ancient yogis
refer to this as awareness because it's formless. But when awareness takes a form, it localizes, and we call it mindfulness, right? Or we say that we're conscious. And what lies beyond our consciousness is awareness. It's a superconscious or collective conscious, however you wish to refer to it as. So going back to the three planes, right? In the physical plane, we have the body, right? And in the mental plane, we have the mind. And in the spiritual plane, we have what's beyond. So there's a space where I can observe my thoughts, right? And behaviors. I can observe the feelings that I'm experiencing within my body. But who is the one observing and monitoring, right? It is separate from who I believe myself to be. Remember, Belina said, just as the one thing, the divine source exists in the universe and each of us, and exists as the soul, right? Which evolves through reincarnation as it seeks perfect expression. Man is only a temporary carrier of something with a much greater purpose. So let's pause here a bit and bring it back to our reality, right? So your soul wants and needs to evolve, and your nervous system wants safety and comfort. And so those are two opposing needs, right? And you'll soon learn that we have 7 essential human needs, and the last 2 are tied to our soul's needs to expand, right? Number 6, I do believe, is the need to align with our higher self. And number 7 is the need to connect to our higher self. And so this is where we align with a healthy mindset, which is the consciousness that's connected to our soul. So this practice that I am not the body, I am not the mind, and I'm not my emotions. I can just see all 3 aspects about this, about me, right? In deep Eastern yogic method, they call it self-inquiry, right? It's the path of the intellect where you go beyond the mind to awareness, understanding that this is the formless that takes on form. So we're not our thoughts, right? But our thoughts shape our reality because they control our feelings and emotions. And those feelings and emotions influence our actions and behaviors, which influences our destiny, right? But what drives all of this are our beliefs around a mindset. Listen up, because it's a little wordy, right? And it reads as this: the earth carried it in a belly, and the wind nourished it in her belly, as earth which shall become fire. This which is above is from that which is below, and that which is below is from that which is above, working. The miracles of one thing, as all things, were from one. The earth carried it in her belly, and the wind nourished it in a belly, as earth which shall become fire. Pretty tricky, huh? So you may have heard of the alchemist, right? Which had the ability to change base metals into gold. Well, that is a euphemism or a metaphor for transmuting this internal power into higher states of enlightenment. So in other words, it's transmuting ourselves into our higher versions. So apparently the translation is merely the power of our imagination to dream big, because tomorrow is never promised in our physical realm, right? But as our timeless soul, to dream big is to experience and revel in abundance. Our imagination allows us to break free. Our imagination is tied to our soul, or our second voice, who wants us to actualize and expand beyond space-time, because our imagination is endless and boundless to our activation energy. And we do that to get it as long as we stop listening and start talking, right? And stop listening to that first naysaying voice and start talking to ourselves through the infinite source of our soul, which is our second voice. When you visualize, right, the act of creating creates your conscious positive thoughts to new feelings of what it will be like. Now, all we need to do is remain consistent with those thoughts, and more importantly, the feelings that will match the vibration of your desires. And now you're mastering all 3 planes. So in reality, when you truly believe with no blockage, you will receive and achieve, right? You will receive additional guidance to help you achieve what it is that you currently desire. So I want to stay with this woo-woo stuff for a while, right? It's the unknown spiritual realm, right? It's where the unexplainable, the unimaginable, where miracles happens, right? So scientists have figured out the odds of everyone being born, and it's an unimaginable number. So that unimaginable number, I'm a miracle, right? And we recall there are 3 planes, right? There's the mental, the physical, and the spiritual that all lead to the mind, right? That is consciousness. And the mind is the creator of all, and that is our conscious thought. So we're not fine, we're amazing, right? We're miracles capable of anything. But if that's the case, why do so many people live such mediocre lives?
They're listening and they're not talking, right? They're listening to their first voice, which over time hijacks your physical body. So what ends up happening is you start to not feel like it. You don't feel like doing anything, right? So please note this. In any area of your life that you want to change, you need to know this. You will never feel like it. You're never going to feel like it. You're not going to want to do it. Even if you know you need to do it, and in some cases you must or have to do it, you will never feel like doing it. That's because your unconscious mind body has hijacked your consciousness. Remember, emotions are the language of the body. So when your body doesn't feel like it, it communicates that up to your conscious mind via your vagus nerve. So my wise words to you and everybody listening is embrace the suck. It's going to suck until it doesn't. And chances are it's going to suck even then, right? So scientists calls this activation energy. That is the force required to move you from doing things that are on autopilot, things that are in your comfort zone, right? Like behaviors around stagnation, procrastination, doing something new, basically. We talked about this in previous episodes around effort and energy, how effort is associated with consciousness, right? Well, that's your second voice. Or in some cases, it's your first voice around survival and consequences, right? Like when you were a teenager and you told yourself that you better do all your chores and take out the trash before your dad gets home. Otherwise, it's going to be serious trouble, right? That's activation energy, which starts with thought energy or consciousness, right? That's the effort, if you recall. And on our physical force, that is the energy, and that is tied to your willpower. And the only way to build up your willpower is through thought and consciousness, experience, and repetition. So, Mel, in one of her talks, she challenges people to do this test, right? So, everyone watching or listening should do this test. I highly recommend it, right? So, she says to set your alarm tonight 30 minutes earlier than you normally get up. And when the alarm goes off, throw your sheets to the side and immediately get out of bed and stand up, right? So, you don't want to hit any snooze. You don't want to lay around for 15 or 30 seconds or a minute to acclimate, right? Test your effort and energy and test your willpower tonight. And let me know what your results are in the comments, right? This is not a pass or fail test, right? This is just to see how connected, or in many cases, disconnected you are from your consciousness and your willpower to see how much training that you actually need to do. And just so you know, the first time I did this test, I was so focused on experiencing a great result because I always want to live in integrity as I pass this information forward that I kept waking up every hour and the hour. You see, I learn from a lot of the things that I share, right? And in some cases, there are new additions, and in other cases, they're old things that I reinvite back into my life. I will say this one disclaimer, right? So if you have something really, really important, like a presentation or focused meeting or a test, I wouldn't do the test tonight, right? I would set that and make sure that I do that in the future. But going forward, I would implement this test. I would change my behavior or change your behavior around hitting snooze. Make sure that your first action is intentional around conquering the day by activating your activation energy. So, activation energy is simply finding the willpower to do all of the things that you don't want to do in order to be all of the things that you want to be. Activation energy is controlled by your second voice. Gets you out of the feelings and into your conscious thoughts. Again, you're never going to feel like doing things. You're never going to feel like doing things that are outside your comfort zone. So when people tell me that they don't feel like it, I say, great. Now tell me what you think. Get out of your body and shift your energy up into your cognitions and tell me the thoughts that are running through your mind, right? Are those thoughts supportive or destructive? Are they empowering or disempowering, right? Get out of your feelings and get into your mind. You see, your feelings are really in the physical world, the physical plane, right? And your emotions are energy in motion within your physical body. So we have the ability to change our emotional state through our conscious thoughts. We can literally change our biochemical makeup with a conscious thought matched with a physical action. So I often tell my clients to operate from their mental and spiritual planes, and they laugh at me, right? And then I have to like kind of translate that and say, don't operate on emotions, operate on reasoning. And then they get it. Again, you have to understand the three zones that your body and mind like to operate within, right? And typically for the majority of society, unfortunately, it's between comfort and anxiety zone, right? Your brain likes to be on autopilot, or it likes to complain that it has no time, no money, and no energy. That's because what your mind and body are opposed to is change, right? And what is growth? Is change, but it's connection to your soul, which is greatness. And the irony is that your mind and body seek comfort and routine, but eventually that routine is what creates our boredom, which makes us seek change. So that seeking of change is really a signal, right? Our mind and body is good at prompting us to take action, right? So when the body needs food, you get a signal that you're hungry. And when your body needs hydration, you get a signal that you're thirsty. And when the body needs love and connection, you get a signal that you're horny or that you long for love and intimacy, right? So the body is always communicating its needs. So when you feel stuck, you get a signal from the body and your mind that something needs to change. So they are what we refer to as 7 essential human needs, and growth and self-actualization is a basic complex human need because we're spiritually connected and our soul wants to expand as wide as the universe. And it wants to create, it wants to learn and be curious, and it needs to explore. And when we deny these things, it sends you a friendly reminder and a signal. It's your physical body, or what I like to call as your physical meat suit, that wants comfort, right? And it's your spirit and your soul that wants, and more importantly, needs expansion. And that's why I believe that the second voice is tied to your greatness. And again, and those who learn to develop and harness the skill achieve success in a way of a quality and satisfying life. So stop listening and start talking. Stop listening to how you feel, because you will never feel like doing anything outside your comfort zone. People don't experience growth because they're operating in their comfort zone. And when they are presented with an opportunity to grow, they pull the emergency brake on their lives. They pull it indirectly by saying these 4 words. Let me think about it. Translation is, I'm currently not getting a good feeling, so I need to think about this some more, right? But let me ask you this. Who is controlling your thoughts, right? When you don't have the second voice, your unconscious mind body is controlling your thoughts. And your unconscious mind body wants safety and comfort, not growth. So you're listening to the voice of an idiot. And that idiot feels that everything is fine. So if everything is fine after giving it some thought, your unconscious mind body finds excuses not to take action and not to take that leap of faith, right? The leap of faith that always leads to growth. So we typically have an impulse when we're exposed to something that we know can be good and life-changing, right? That's because our mental and spiritual realm intuitively become aware of the opportunities and possibilities. But if we don't marry those impulses with an action, our unconscious mind body will kick in, because the opportunities and new possibilities always resides outside of safety and comfort. So this is really, really important. And I want you to please pay attention, right? So your unconscious mind body has a self-preservation emergency brake that it pulls all the time. So knowing this, you need to implement a fail-safe tool to take action on these intuitive impulses that I believe are signals to move us towards our greatness. Rule. Now, here's an example, right? So you see a person across the room, right? You catch eyes, and now you're interested in them, right? You have an impulse to say something or cross their path to force a conversation. So if you don't act on that impulse within 5 seconds, if you don't take action, your unconscious mind body will kick in and it will pull that emergency brake. So we've all experienced this probably multiple times in our lives, right? You see someone that you're interested in and you let the moment pass. And what ends up happening is you just sit there and you wonder what could have been, right? That's because your activation energy window closed, because you allowed your first voice to dictate your action, or really your lack of action. So let me ask you this one question. Is that an effective way to live, right? To miss out on the things that can be life-changing. And I'm just not talking about people that we run across, right? I'm talking about all possibilities and all opportunities, right? This is what they mean when they say, get out of your own way. Stop killing your dreams and killing your ideas. Stop listening and start talking. Learn how to dream again and reconnect to your imagination. I mentioned before, our last two human essential needs, number 6 and number 7, are complex spiritual needs, right? It requires us to break free. And many people never get to realize them because they're not open to this possibility that we are spirits having a human experience. But when you buy into this possibility, you can experience true alignment and integration. And that is number 6. And need number 7 is once that you're aligned and integrated, you can fully connect to your higher self. And that is our second voice. We are source energy before we came into these physical bodies, right? But we don't remember that. And there's a reason why. They say we come here to forget so that we can remember. And that is exactly what I experienced for sure when I had my spiritual encounter on October 18th, 2016. So again, you and I were source energy before we came into our bodies, and now we're an extension of that source energy. But we all are unique and we all have unique journeys. Our mission is to seek out and align with our unique preferences, and that can only be achieved by us, right? That's our why. If you remember, I lost my passion because my why became my dad's why. That's not how life is intended to work. Now, we can be guided, but we cannot be persuaded because chances are it's not our preference, right? It's the preference of someone else we may feel obligated to please for whatever reason, and it's usually attachment reasons. The discovery of self, as I mentioned before, is really in the elimination process, right? You're meant to be curious and try things to see if the glove fits. And if it doesn't, you immediately realize what you don't want, right? And the more that you know what you don't want, the easier it is to align with what you do want, right? But that requires you to talk, not listen, right? That requires you to be in the vortex, which is where the second voice resides. Your inner being is unconditional, right? So when you set a desire, your inner being is already a vibrational match to that desire. It doesn't reason with you, right? That's the first voice, right? That first voice is rooted in fear and rooted in doubt. No, your inner being knows that all things are possible, so anything is possible. When I was first starting out in the music industry, right, I was a dreamer. I had a big imagination, and I said that one day I will own my own record label. And then 3 years later, that day came true. And I didn't have that first naysaying voice to say, you're not qualified. That's impossible. What do you know about running a label, right? Who's going to fund it? So on and so on. No, I was free of a cluttered mind. I had a healthy mindset. I had clarity and a really big imagination, which I now believe puts you in the receiving mode vibrationally. And that's where the so-called miracles and the unimaginable things happen, right? They're in the vortex. The only time it doesn't happen is when you split yourself, right? By inviting the energy of fear and doubt, which causes you to lower your vibration. And now you're out of the range of the vortex and you're out of the range of the receiving zone. I often joke and I tell people that all miracles, all the unimaginable, the unthinkable are all delivered on Faith Street. Not on I don't know Boulevard, and definitely not on I have doubts Avenue. So you have to become a vibrational match. And to keep this at a neuroscience level, your thought energy needs to match your desires, and your unconscious mind body has to match your thought energy. It needs to be congruent. So your body, which keeps the score, this is where all the blockage is that keeps you out of the receiving frequency, right? So typically your body is not a vibrational match because it's been listening to the first voice. And over time, by listening to the first voice, it has stored lower emotions around doubt and fear. So now your unconscious mind body feels that everything is fine. And it also feels that it will be fine if what you desire is not realized. And that is not a vibrational match to dreaming big and having a big imagination, right? Remember, Source already knows that you're a badass, that you're worthy, and that you're capable, and that you're a rock star. But somewhere along the journey, you forgot that. So here's the key. Source exists in your emotional awareness. So when you're in these high energies of love, compassion, empathy, connection, elation, you feel great because there's a vibrational match with Source. There's no discord with the Source within you, right? But when you feel sad, guilty, that was a big one for me. I had to release that one, right? When you feel guilty, you feel shame, doubt, you feel off, you feel disconnected because you moved out of the vibrational match of the infinite source that's within you, right? Those thoughts create emotional discord. Now, here's something to ponder. So please write this down. Pause, take a minute and listen to this, right? So if the source didn't exist in your emotional awareness, you could think any thought without a vibrational change, or more importantly, without any biochemical reaction within your body, right? Our thoughts influence our emotional state. Remember, emotions is the language of the body. So anytime that you think and feel negative, it simply means that you have a different opinion on the matter than the source within you does, right? There's no longer a vibrational match. These three steps. You may have doubts about these three steps because you haven't experienced them or seen evidence of them, right? Or you may have doubts because it seems too simple, or it just may not resonate with you because of certain beliefs that you have that keep you in your comfort zone. You have to remember that we resist change, all change, even if it's just simple new information. I always say that a belief is just a poor excuse for an experience, right? Remember, I experienced a spiritual encounter that changed my way of thinking. And those who knew me prior can confirm that I changed my energy, my view of the world, and I'm truly at peace with myself and everyone, because you have to be. Otherwise, there's a form of splitting, right? If I hold hate in my heart for anyone, I'm holding hate for myself at the source level, which immediately pulls me out of the vortex. So here are the three steps. Step number one, understand that contrast helps you define what doesn't belong, right? You have a thought that's not a vibrational match. You can have the awareness to direct and correct. Direct your attention and correct your thoughts and behaviors. This helps you remove what doesn't align and helps you find what does, right? So contrast, it's important. Contrast helps you define what you want. That's step number one. Step number two is when you know what you want, source becomes it immediately. The source within you becomes it immediately, right? You say, I want X, and the source says, done. And step number three is you ask, and the source answers. And then you must become a vibrational match to what you're asking for, right? You have to believe, imagination, no blockage, right? And then you will receive and achieve. You will receive additional guidance and additional answers that you seek to help you achieve what you desire. So you have to trust the process and eliminate all the fear and all the doubt. So if this is the case, why aren't we all experiencing and achieving all of the things that we want out of life, right? So here's a secret. You can't want something and doubt it at the same time and get it. Doesn't work like that, right? You can't want something and be mad that you don't have it yet. You can't be impatient about it, right? That energy blocks and delays because it pulls you right out of the vortex. So you have to realize that we're manifesting all day, every day, right? We're either knocking and blocking, right? Or we're matching and attracting, right? If we're knocking and blocking, that is our unconscious mind body through the first voice. But when we're matching and attracting, that is our second voice. That's an alignment, right? So it starts with our point of attraction, right? What's your mode? Where are you vibrationally? Where are you in relations to the infinite source energy that is within you and all around you? And here's the secret. I haven't been answering it yet, right? What is all the vortex all about, right? The all around you is the vortex, but you can only access it through your higher frequencies that are free of fear. So you have to ask yourself, are you holding source energy back? Or are you letting it in, right? And letting it in is really, really simple. It's creating the thoughts and the emotions that aren't blocking and knocking, right? It's not listening to that first voice. It's being intentional, listening to the second voice that is connected to your soul. So if you want something, but you're not matching and attracting, you're blocking it with negative thoughts and you're knocking down all of the opportunities that pop up because you're not in the receiving mode. And it usually comes down to this. So please write this down and please take it in. Your observation of the conditions that exist now are the reasons you keep repeating a pattern that holds away the things that you want. And I'll repeat it one more time. Your observation of the conditions that exist now are the reasons you keep repeating a pattern that holds away the things that you want. So you have to change the way that you look at things, right? And you need to reorient yourself. And that takes time. And more importantly, it takes intention, right? You need to be intentional if you want to live an intentional life. Makes sense, right? So to me, you have to accept that you always have guidance, right? And that guidance is always leading you towards what you want. That guidance is your second voice, simply aware of when you're moving towards the direction of what you want, and more importantly, when you're not, right? So when you feel strong contrast, that's the indicator that something's off, right? So listen to that, align with it, sit with it, and be open to receiving new guidance, right? And eventually you'll master this process if you really start to be intentional about connecting to your second voice. So your second voice is your healthy mindset. It's connected to greatness. And again, it challenges your first voice. And over time, it keeps that first voice in check. So, how do we develop our second voice? So, here are three proven tools, right? So, tool number one is to understand the concept of no dirty feet. So, you say this every time that you become aware that you're having a negative thought that may be blocking and knocking down your opportunities and possibilities to grow, right? So you'll say, superstitions enforce the rule for germs in the house, right? And so the same principle applies here. Don't allow negative thoughts to enter your mindset, right? They're like dirty feet that track germs inside your consciousness. Tool number two is called the three proofs technique, right? So, whether we realize it or not, our reticular activation system is looking for confirmation in the environment, right? And if we don't bring our own consciousness into the equation, our unconscious mind body will be looking for the confirmation. And it's called confirmation bias, right? It looks for the things to confirm what you unconsciously believe to be true. But remember, it's a dual illusion, right? It's a dual reality that we live in, right? I call it the two-sided coin. And most of us are only looking at the tail side down, right? That's the negative side. But there's another perspective, right? There's a positive side. I call it the heads up side, right? So this technique allows you to consciously look for three positive proofs that you're great and that the things that you want or the things that you're working on are moving in the right direction. So remember, consistently to why you're a badass. So how it works is pretty simple, right? So you pick an area in your life where you're being intentional, right? And you're taking action. Let's say that you're trying to lose weight, right? So you write down three positive proofs daily around the actions and the results, right? So number one would be like, I did a 20-minute workout today, right? Number two is I weighed in and I'm down 4 pounds. Number three is I hit my target calorie burn and intake numbers today, right? So the more that you intentionally talk to yourself around daily positive actions that you're taking, the stronger your second voice will become, right? Neurons that fire together wire together, right? So you actually be reprogramming your mindset. So the third tool is understanding and implementing the four important questions. Remember, I said I'll get to that at the end, right? It's the four important questions for clarity and alignment, right? So the number one question is, what do you want to be? So you want to answer this question and think of your values and your principles, right? You want to be the best version of yourself. You want to be trustworthy, reliable, confident, stable, both mentally and financially, and you want to be loved, right? Question number two is, what do you want and why, right? So you want to be positive. You want to make sure that you do what you want to do without any reservation. So make sure that you push yourself when you're answering this question. Question number three is, what do you want to have, right? So you want to be intentional. You want to be well-rounded when you answer this question and think about all the areas in your life. Finally, question number four is, what do you want to share with the world? And remember that growth and contribution is how we really, our soul, experiences true fulfillment. So think about that in a deep to the point where we're at the key takeaway. So here it is, right? So please pay attention. Everything worthwhile in your life is always uphill. All your dreams, your hopes, your desires, they're all uphill, right? Which means that you have to come represents a new developed skill, right? That's how you get to the top. You have to be in the learning zone. You can't be in the comfort zone drifting along, right? So write this down. No one ever drifted to a desired location. And I'll say it again. No one ever drifted to a desired location. So you have to overcome emotions that leads to your distractions, right? That's your first voice. You must be able to trigger yourself to the point that your excuses and feelings don't matter anymore. That's your second voice, right? You have to remember that successful people are really just better at convincing themselves to do the things that they don't want to do, right? They realize that it takes sacrifice and discipline. So they talk to themselves in a loving way. All successful relationships, according to the Gottman Institute, have a similar theme. It's kind and loving conversations. Remember, you're going to talk to yourself more than anyone else on the planet. you're always going to have those inner conversations. So it's loving yourself really, right? And allowing source to love you as well, right? It's being intentional with your internal voice, making sure that you don't allow any dirty feet to walk in your mindset. And you must be willing to do today what others won't do in order to have the things tomorrow that others won't have. So it's not what you're capable of, it's what you're willing to do. That's the separator, right? So people that I bring on to my team or that I go into business with, I tell them this: I only deal with character and commitment. I don't deal with potential. Everyone has potential, but what's your character, right? Where's your heart? Are you committed to yourself? Because again, you can only give what you currently have, right? So when you work on developing your second voice, you're really working on yourself. And you can have more than you got because you become more than you are. So I'm going to leave off with this. Your past is in your head, but your future is always in your hands, right? And so at some point in time, you need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable if you want to level up, right? And it's not going to feel good. It's never going to feel good, right? So again, I say embrace the suck. But when you make that decision, you'll move out of your comfort zone into your learning zone, which allows you to tap into your second voice and all its infinite possibility. And that, in my opinion, Julie, is the one thing I can credit to developing a healthy mindset. Now you know. One love. Today's episode was sponsored by Help to Love, a platform to open your mind, achieve mental agility, and integrate into the person that you're meant to be. With a wealth of resources and expert advice at your fingertips, Help to Love makes prioritizing your mental well-being easier than ever. It's a non-judgmental approach to mental wellness to help you design that 10x life you deserve. Sign up today at www.helptolove.com. Join the thousands of users who have already discovered the transformative power. Register for the free webinar that will open your mind and plant seeds for your ultimate breakthrough. If you felt this episode was helpful and insightful, please like, share, and subscribe so that you'll be notified of all of our upcoming content and special announcements. I'm E.O. Brooks, your host. As always, I thank you for your support and especially your time. One love.